Princess Lura stood inside the large crystal hall of the Valorian palace, waiting for her father to speak. The emperor was sitting on his high throne, surrounded by ministers who never dared to disagree with him. Lura's hands were folded together, and her heart felt heavy. She already knew something was wrong. Whenever her father called her with a smile, it usually meant trouble for her. The emperor finally rose from his seat. His tall, thin form, wrapped in gold armor, made him look powerful to everyone who watched him, but Lura knew that he enjoyed using that power to make others feel small, especially her. He looked at her with a fake warm smile, the same smile he always used when he was planning something cruel. "My daughter," he said loudly, "today, I have selected a very important mission for you." Lura felt her stomach tighten. She knew that his important missions were never truly important. They were always ways to send her far away from the palace, so he didn't have to see her. Before she could speak, the emperor continued. "You will be sent to the human space station on the outer rim. The humans want a cultural exchange, so we shall send you." The ministers around him nodded quickly, as if agreeing out of fear. Lura was surprised. She had never been allowed to participate in political matters. This suddenly felt like too much responsibility, unless there was something else behind it. The emperor looked at the ministers, and they laughed quietly. Lura understood. This wasn't an honor. This was a joke. A way to embarrass Earth. A way to embarrass her. He wanted to send the daughter he mocked. The daughter he called excessive, heavy, and slow, even though her size came from a rare Valorian trait that made her stronger than most warriors. She had layers of natural muscle density, but the emperor always mocked her for looking different. That cruelty had followed her since childhood. Now he was using her as a tool. "You leave in 1 hour," he said. "The humans will surely be shocked." Lura felt a sting in her chest, but she didn't show it. She had learned long ago not to give him the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. She simply bowed and turned away. As she walked through the great halls, she wished only to leave quickly. The palace never felt like home. Servants stared at her. Soldiers whispered. Nobody spoke to her with real kindness, except her old tutor, who had passed away years ago. Since then, she had been alone. Her ship was already prepared, small and simple. She boarded quietly, without ceremony. That alone told her everything she needed to know. An heir to the empire should have been sent with honor. Instead, she was sent like a forgotten package. Lura looked at the stars through the ship window as it lifted off. She hoped Earth would be better than home, but she doubted it. Why would humans treat her differently? Her own people didn't understand her. How would a different species? The journey took many hours. When she finally arrived at the human station, she expected guards looking disgusted or hiding laughter. She expected whispering, pointing, or rude comments. Instead, she found only curious eyes. Humans gathered at the docking bay, watching her step out of the ship. They whispered quietly, but not with cruelty. They seemed surprised. Yes, but also respectful. The station commander stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Princess Lura, welcome to Horizon Station. We are honored to receive you." Lura blinked, confused for a moment. No one had spoken to her like that in years. She nodded gently, still unsure how to react. The commander explained her living arrangements and offered an escort. But Lura requested time to explore the station by herself. She needed space. She needed silence to breathe. As she walked through the metallic halls of the station, she felt something strange, a feeling that people were watching her without judging her. Their eyes held interest, not mockery. It made her steps lighter. A small repair drone buzzed past her shoulder, malfunctioning slightly. It bumped against the wall, sparks flying. Before Lura could move, A man rushed from the nearby workshop, grabbing the drone carefully. "Whoa, calm down, little buddy," he said in a friendly voice. He tapped the drone twice, and it settled quietly in his hands. He adjusted a small wire and smiled at it like a parent fixing a child's toy. Then he looked up and froze when he saw her. Laura expected the usual: shock, confusion, maybe even fear. But the man's eyes didn't show any of that. Instead, he looked fascinated, as if meeting someone truly interesting. He wiped his hands on his work jumpsuit and stepped closer. "Are you Princess Laura?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." He smiled warmly. "I'm Evan Cole. I fix almost everything on this station. Welcome aboard." His voice carried no insult, no hesitation, just kindness. Laura wasn't used to that, especially from someone meeting her for the first time. His calm, honest expression made her relax a little. She noticed a large engine part on the floor nearby. It was heavy, too heavy for most humans. Evan sighed at it. "These bolts are stuck again," he muttered. "Takes 2 people to lift it usually." Without thinking much, Laura walked over and gripped the metal frame. With a steady motion, she lifted it off the ground. Evan's jaw dropped slightly. You're strong," he said. Laura felt the usual embarrassment. She had been mocked all her life for this trait. But Evan didn't look disgusted. He looked impressed. "Yes," she said quietly. "I am." "That's amazing," Evan said. "You lifted it like nothing." Laura didn't know how to respond. She was used to being told she was too much, not amazing. She watched Evan tighten some loose wiring around the engine before standing up. "You want to see something cool?" he asked suddenly. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Something cool?" "Yeah," he laughed softly. "A human word. It means interesting or fun. Come on." He led her into the workshop. It was a wide area filled with tools, glowing panels, engine parts, mechanical arms, and screens showing diagrams. Humans moved around, fixing drones and ship components. The smell of metal and oil filled the air. Evan guided her to a table where a half-built engine core was placed. "This is a human-Valorian hybrid engine," he explained proudly. "We've been trying to understand Valorian energy cycling for years. Humans learned the basics, but Valorians still do it better." Laura stared at the device. She understood it instantly. Even though she had never been allowed to work in engineering halls back home, she secretly studied machines whenever she could. "You are connecting the plasma conduits in the wrong sequence," she said softly. Evan turned to her, surprised. "You know about this?" She nodded. "Yes. And if you reroute the flow like this?" She reached out and adjusted a small dial, then rotated a coupling ring. The engine hummed smoothly, a sound Evan had been trying to achieve for days. His eyes widened like a child seeing magic. That's perfect. How did you know?" She shrugged lightly. "I just understand machines." Evan laughed in amazement. "Princess, you're hired." Laura smiled, an honest, small smile she hadn't felt in years. For a long time, she stayed in the workshop, helping Evan and watching him work. He taught her simple human tools and joked about the stubborn bolts that annoyed him. She corrected a few more engine errors, each time earning excited praise from Evan. Every moment felt new, different, safe. For the first time in her life, someone didn't treat her like a burden or a mistake. Evan saw her talent. He respected her strength. He spoke to her like an equal. As she left the workshop that evening, she felt something strange in her chest. Something warm and unfamiliar. Hope. She didn't know what the next days would bring. She didn't know that the Emperor would soon regret sending her away. She didn't know that Evan would become the center of a story that would shake 2 empires. But she knew one thing clearly. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. and she wasn't alone anymore. Princess Laura woke up early the next morning, long before the humans began their usual work routines. The station lights were dim, set to the gentle glow of simulated sunrise. She sat on the edge of her bed, thinking about everything that had happened the day before. It felt unreal. Someone had smiled at her without judgment. Someone had spoken to her with respect. Someone had called her amazing. Those small things had created a big warmth inside her chest. She dressed quickly in the simple clothing the humans had given her, comfortable fabric instead of the heavy ceremonial robes she wore at home. For once, she moved without feeling weighed down. She wanted to visit the workshop again. She tried to hide the excitement rising in her heart, but it was difficult. When she entered the engineering bay, Evan was already there. His face lit up the moment he saw her. "Princess Laura, good morning," he said with genuine happiness. Laura felt a soft surprise. People usually greeted her out of fear, not joy. "Good morning, Evan," she replied. He brushed some dust off a metal panel and motioned for her to come closer. "I was working on something all night. You want to see?" She nodded, and he led her to a small table. On it sat a half-completed drone, its rotors removed, its energy core opened like a mechanical heart. "This little guy is supposed to help with welding in narrow spaces," Evan explained, "but he overheats too fast." Laura studied the exposed core. She placed her hand lightly near the heat vents and felt the air temperature. Then she checked the wiring, her eyes moving slowly, understanding each part. "The heat is trapped because the vent pathway is too narrow," she said calmly. "You should widen it and add a second cooling strip here." Evan blinked. "You can tell that from just looking?" She nodded. He gave a short laugh. "Princess, you're incredible." Laura felt her cheeks warm. No one had ever said that to her, not even once in her entire life. She looked away, a little shy, which made Evan smile even more. They worked side by side, and for the first time, Laura allowed herself to relax fully. Evan moved with energy and humor, often joking about stubborn wires or tools that didn't behave. Laura found his cheerfulness strangely comforting. It balanced her quiet, thoughtful nature. As they finished repairing the drone, 3 human engineers walked into the workshop. They stopped when they saw Laura. For a second, silence filled the room. Laura prepared herself for the usual whispers or awkward stares, but one of the engineers, a woman named Aria, stepped forward with a friendly smile. "You must be Princess Laura. We've heard you helped fix the hybrid engine yesterday." Laura nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. "That was amazing," Aria said. "Evan wouldn't stop talking about it." Laura glanced at Evan, who scratched his head and looked away sheepishly. She felt a soft flutter inside her. Someone had actually talked about her with pride. Aria continued, "If you ever want to learn more about human engineering, we'd love to teach you." Laura was shocked. On her home world, she was never allowed in the engineering halls. Here, humans were offering to teach her, and not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "Thank you," she said quietly. They spent the next hour showing her around the workshop, explaining tools, new engines, and human methods. Laura absorbed everything like a sponge. She asked questions with genuine interest, and the engineers answered happily. Evan watched her from the corner of his eye. He noticed how carefully she listened, how quickly she understood, how her face brightened when she learned something new. She was different from anyone he had met. There was a quiet strength inside her, a strength that came not only from her body but also from her mind. Later that day, Evan invited her to see another part of the station, the observation dome. It was a peaceful space with transparent walls, giving a clear view of the stars and the nearby nebula. Laura stepped inside and froze. Stars shimmered like silver dust scattered across the dark sky. A swirling blue nebula glowed in the distance. Her eyes softened as she looked at the endless space around her. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Evan leaned against the railing and smiled. "I come here whenever I need to think, or calm down." Laura stood beside him. "I never saw the sky like this on Valoria. Our palace is always covered in thick clouds." "Do you miss home?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "There is nothing to miss." Evan listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. That simple silence felt more comforting to Laura than any conversation she had ever had back home. After a long pause, she spoke again. "My father sent me here as a joke," she said softly. "He thinks humans will laugh at me." Evan's expression tightened, not with pity, but with anger. "That's cruel," Laura nodded. "It is normal for him." "He never liked how I look. He thinks I am a failure." Evan turned to her fully. "Then he doesn't see very well." Laura looked at him, surprised. "You're smart," he continued. "You're strong. You understand machines better than half this station. And you're kinder than anyone I've met." Laura felt something inside her chest tremble. No one had ever said words like that to her. She didn't know how to handle the warm feeling spreading through her heart. "I don't think your father knows who you really are," Evan said quietly. "But everyone here sees it." She looked away, afraid her feelings would show too clearly. But Evan's expression remained gentle, patient. Before she could respond, the station's alarm suddenly echoed through the dome. A sharp, rising siren filled the air. Red lights flashed across the walls. Evan straightened instantly. "That's a perimeter alert." Laura stepped closer to the transparent wall. Outside, a large shadow moved through space. Something massive was approaching the station. Within moments, the station commander's voice echoed through the speakers. "All crew, report to emergency stations. A Valorian warcruiser has entered our outer zone." Laura's heart dropped. She recognized the ship design, a heavy-class cruiser. Her father had sent one of the strongest vessels in the Empire. Evan ran toward the exit. "We need to get to engineering. They'll target the systems first." Laura followed him, her steps quick and steady. Her mind raced with fear and confusion. Why would a cruiser come here without warning? Was her father already trying to bring her back? They reached the engineering bay, where engineers rushed around with tense faces. Screens showed the cruiser moving closer, powering its weapon systems. "This is bad," Arya said. "Very bad. That ship could destroy our shields in minutes." Evan looked at Laura. "Your father wouldn't attack, right?" Laura swallowed. "If he thinks I'm embarrassing him, he might forcefully bring me back." The station shook suddenly as a shockwave hit. People stumbled. Tools fell to the floor. Another alarm sounded, louder and more urgent. "The shields are weakening!" someone shouted. A panel exploded nearby, spraying sparks. The lights flickered. The engineers panicked. Evan rushed to a console. "We need manual repairs. Laura, can you help me?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." He led her to a damaged generator room. Heavy coils had fallen out of alignment. Thick beams had bent under pressure. The door jammed, but Laura pushed it open with one strong shove. Inside, the air was filled with smoke and heat. Engineers tried to lift a collapsed plasma conduit, but it was too heavy. Evan looked at Laura. "Only you can move it." She stepped forward, grabbing the conduit with both hands. Her muscles tensed, and she lifted it slowly but steadily. The humans stared, stunned by her strength. "Hold it right there," Evan said. "Don't move." He crawled under the lifted structure, reconnecting wires and adjusting the energy flow. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but he worked with focus. Laura held the weight without shaking. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Evan shouted, "Done! Lower it!" She placed the conduit back carefully. Evan rushed to the console and activated the generator. The lights brightened. The station's shield meter rose slowly. "It's working," Arya said from outside. Laura stepped back, coughing lightly from the smoke. Evan wiped his hands and looked at her with deep admiration. "You saved us." Laura shook her head. "We saved it together." But in his eyes, she saw something stronger than simple gratitude. She saw respect. She saw trust. She saw something warm that frightened her in a thrilling way. The station trembled again, but this time, the shields held firm. Laura stared at the screen showing the cruiser. It slowly backed away, realizing that the station was stronger than expected. Evan stood beside her, breathing hard. "They came to take you, didn't they?" Laura nodded. "But I will not go." He looked at her with a steady, comforting gaze. "Good. Because we're not letting them take you." Laura felt that same strange warmth inside her heart, stronger this time, brighter. For the first time in her life, someone was standing beside her without fear, and she wasn't going to let anything tear that away. The station remained tense long after the Valorian cruiser pulled back. Even though the danger had faded for now, everyone felt the pressure still hanging in the air like a storm they could not see. The alarms had stopped, the lights were steady again, and the engines hummed as usual, but no one relaxed. Laura stood near the main engineering console, watching the screen showing the cruiser drifting at a distance. It was not leaving, it was waiting. She knew this behavior well. Valorian warships rarely rushed their threats. They preferred to make their presence known, to frighten enemies with silent, heavy shadows. Evan wiped grease off his arms, still catching his breath after the repairs earlier. His voice remained calm, but his eyes held worry. "They won't go away," he said quietly. Laura nodded. "No. They will stay until they get what they came for." "And that's you," Evan murmured. She looked down. The truth felt like a weight on her chest. She had known her father might try something, but she never imagined it would be this fast, or this aggressive. She had barely spent 2 days on the human station, and already the Empire wanted to drag her back like property. Arya entered the engineering bay with a report in her hand. "The commander wants everyone alert. The cruiser is scanning our systems. They're searching for weak points." Evan sighed. "Of course they are." Arya looked at Laura with gentle concern. "Princess, we will protect you. Don't think for a second that we'll hand you over." Laura appreciated her words, but fear lingered inside her. She didn't want the humans to get hurt because of her. She didn't want the station damaged. She didn't want Evan, kind, brilliant, fearless Evan, to be caught in a war he never asked for. "I never wanted trouble to come here," she said softly. Evan touched her arm lightly, giving her a reassuring look. "You didn't bring trouble? Your father did. There's a difference." Laura felt her heart tighten, warmed and pained at the same time. A loud beep cut through the room. The main monitors flashed red. Evan rushed forward, tapping controls. "They're sending a communication signal," he said. "Direct channel." The commander's voice came through the intercom. "All crew, prepare for a visual transmission from the Valorian cruiser." Laura felt her body freeze. She knew exactly who it would be. Everyone gathered around the large screen in the engineering bay. The screen flickered, then displayed the stern face of the Valorian Emperor, her father. His eyes were cold and sharp, the same eyes that judged her since childhood. Behind him, ornate pillars decorated the cruiser's command room, a reminder of his royal arrogance. "Princess Laura," he said, using a voice that pretended to be gentle, "you have caused enough embarrassment. Prepare for retrieval." The humans exchanged worried glances. Laura stepped forward, lifting her chin. "Father, I am safe. There is no reason to take me by force." "There is every reason," he snapped. "You have been seen assisting humans, working beside them like a servant, fixing their machines. A princess does not behave this way." Evan clenched his fists, but stayed silent. Laura replied calmly, I am not a servant. I am learning. I am helping. I am doing something useful. Her father's lips curled with disgust. You embarrass the Empire, and I will not tolerate further humiliation. You will return immediately. The commander appeared beside Laura on the screen. With respect, Emperor, she is a guest on our station. She is safe here. We will not force her to leave. The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. If you do not release her, I will take her by force. Evan stepped forward, no longer able to stay silent. She doesn't want to go. You can't force her to return to a place where she's treated badly. The Emperor stared at him, shocked that a human dared to speak. Then his expression darkened dangerously. You, a mechanic, dare speak to me? He growled. You have no right to address the Emperor of Valoria. Evan didn't back down. I have every right to speak when someone threatens my home. And for a brief moment, Laura forgot everything. Her fear, her past, her father's cruelty. She saw only one thing. Someone was standing up for her. Not out of duty, not out of fear, but out of genuine care. Her father's voice thundered across the screen. You will regret your disrespect. Prepare for consequences. The screen went dark. Silence filled the engineering bay until Arya finally spoke. He's going to attack. Evan turned to Laura. We need to prepare. And we need your help more than ever. Laura closed her eyes for a moment. Her hands trembled. She felt torn between two worlds, one that rejected her and one that embraced her, one that used her as a tool and one that valued her as a friend. I will help, she said firmly. Evan nodded. Good, because we can't hold out without you. The next 2 hours were filled with intense preparation. Engineers rushed to reinforce shield systems. Security teams positioned defense drones across the station's exterior. Medical staff prepared emergency rooms. Laura stayed mostly with Evan. He guided her through every step, trusting her abilities, asking her advice, depending on her strength. She had never felt so needed, so capable, so free. They worked on stabilizing the plasma conduits again. Some components were old, some damaged. Laura lifted heavy machinery while Evan tightened bolts and rewired systems beneath her. At one point, a beam slipped from a crane and fell dangerously close. Laura reacted instantly, grabbing it before it crashed. Evan stared at her, shocked and relieved. You just saved my life, he breathed. Laura looked away shyly but smiled. We save each other. He held her gaze and something deep passed between them, something unspoken, strong, and frighteningly real. But there was no time to think about it. A sudden violent tremor shook the entire station. Everyone stumbled. Alarms screamed again. They've started firing, someone shouted. Evan ran to the main console. Shields at 60%, Arya called out from across the room. If this continues, the shields will fail in minutes. Laura's heart pounded. She rushed to Evan's side. Evan, what do we do? He looked at the wiring beneath the console. We need to reroute power to the secondary grid, but the access panels are behind collapsed beams from the earlier damage. Laura didn't hesitate. I can clear them. Laura, it's dangerous, Evan said. I am strong enough, she insisted. She left the bay and entered the narrow power corridor. Smoke filled the air. Panels sparked violently. Heavy beams had fallen across the walkway, blocking access to the power couplings. Without thinking, Laura stepped forward and lifted one beam after another, clearing the path with strength no human could match. She reached the main coupling station. Energy lines glowed bright blue, threatening overload. She began adjusting them using both her knowledge and instinct, rerouting power while alarms blared around her. The floor shook again. A loud explosion echoed far down the corridor. She flinched but stayed focused. Through her communicator, she heard Evan's voice. Laura, are you okay? I am working, she said, breath controlled. Keep the shields running. She twisted the final energy conduit into the correct position. Sparks shot out. But then, the light steadied. The hum of the engines grew stronger. The shields glowed brighter on the monitors. Evan shouted, "It's working! Laura, you did it!" She allowed herself a small smile. But the moment was short. The Valorian cruiser changed its attack pattern. Instead of firing directly, it began charging a massive weapon, one that could break shields with a single shot. Evan stared at the readings in horror. They're preparing a supercharged blast. If they fire that, the station won't survive. Laura rushed back to engineering, her breath heavy but controlled. What can we do? There's only one way, Arya said. We have to manually boost the power core to maximum, but the pressure will be too much. The core could explode. Evan shook his head. It's risky. Too risky. Laura stepped closer. Then we must do it carefully. Together. Evan met her eyes. If something goes wrong, it won't, she said softly. Because you will be with me. Evan swallowed hard, then nodded. All right, let's do it. They ran toward the central power chamber, hearts racing, knowing this moment could decide everything. Her freedom, the station's survival, and the fragile bond growing between them. As they entered the chamber, Laura felt a deep certainty inside her. This was not just about escape anymore. This was about protecting the first place that ever felt like home, and the first person who ever made her feel truly seen. The palace courtyard was silent when Orion and Princess Leora stepped out of the transport ship. The sunlight of Vargan Prime washed over the tall stone towers and glowing banners that showed the Emperor's power. The guards stood in rows, but today their eyes did not look proud. Many of them looked confused, some looked worried, and all of them stared at Leora. They had never seen her return home like this, standing tall, moving without fear, and with a human at her side who looked ready to fight the whole empire for her. Leora held her hands together as she walked, trying to stay calm. For the first time in her life, she felt strong. She felt wanted. Orion had given her a life she never believed she could have. And now she was walking into the palace where she had once cried alone, hiding from the cruel jokes of courtiers who whispered that she was the Emperor's failed daughter. But today, she was not the same girl. Orion walked beside her quietly. He did not fear the Emperor or the palace. He only cared about Leora. He had promised to protect her, and he would do that even if it meant standing against an empire. As they entered the grand hall, the Emperor sat on his throne of metal and light. His face was stern. His eyes were like cold knives as he studied the two of them. Strangely, he did not shout. He did not mock. He only raised one eyebrow. So, he said slowly, my daughter returns. Leora bowed her head slightly. Father. The Emperor looked at Orion next, his gaze heavy. And the human stays by your side, even here? Orion answered calmly. Yes, I am with her. A few nobles whispered among themselves. Several looked offended, as if a human standing in the throne hall was a crime, but Orion ignored all of them. He only kept his back straight. The Emperor moved his fingers across the armrest of his throne. I sent you away to teach you a lesson, he said to Leora. I wanted you to understand your place, to realize you must stop dreaming of things that do not belong to you. And yet, his eyes narrowed. You returned stronger. Leora swallowed. I did not become strong because of suffering. I became strong because someone believed in me. The Emperor tilted his head slightly. The human? Yes, she said. He respected me. He showed me that I have value. The Emperor leaned back in his throne, his expression unreadable. Interesting. Orion stepped forward. Your Majesty, I do not ask for anything. I only want you to know that your daughter is capable of far more than you ever allowed her to show. She... The Emperor lifted his hand. Silence. Orion stopped speaking, but he did not step back. His jaw tightened slightly. The Emperor studied them for a long moment. The hall was so silent that even the guards seemed to stop breathing. Then the Emperor spoke again. "There is a war at the edge of my empire." Everyone in the hall stiffened. The Emperor rarely mentioned such things in public. "The Karen Dominion has attacked our listening stations. Their ships are moving toward our borders." He stood from the throne, his voice growing colder. "I need my commanders focused. I need my people united." His eyes shifted between Orion and Leora. "This is not the time for childish disobedience." Leora's heart fell. So that was it. The Emperor wanted her to return to the silent life of the palace, hidden, ignored, treated like a burden, while others took the glory. She clenched her hands. "I am not a child anymore," she said softly but firmly, "and I am not weak." The Emperor looked at her with surprise, real surprise for the first time. "You dare speak to me like this?" he asked. Orion touched Leora's arm gently, trying to calm her, but she shook her head. "Father, I lived far from here," she continued. "I repaired ships with Orion. I worked with my hands. I learned how strong I could be. And for the first time, someone saw me, not as a joke, not as a punishment. As a person." The nobles gasped quietly. Leora raised her chin. "Send me away again if you want. Hide me again. But I will no longer be silent." The Emperor's jaw tightened. "You think you can claim such freedom? You think the galaxy will respect you simply because a human showed you kindness?" Orion stepped forward. "I did more than show kindness. She saved me. She saved my life more than once. She is far stronger than you understand." The Emperor turned to him sharply. "You speak boldly for someone standing in my hall." Orion did not flinch. "I will speak boldly whenever it concerns her." Leora's eyes softened. She felt warmth rise in her chest. But the Emperor did not soften. His expression hardened. "And what do you want with my daughter, human? A place in my empire? A title? Reward?" Orion shook his head. "I want nothing from you. I only want her." A heavy silence spread across the hall. Even the Emperor's eyes widened slightly at the honesty of the words. Leora's breath caught in her chest. She turned to Orion slowly. His eyes were fixed on the Emperor, but she saw the truth. He meant every word. The Emperor stepped down from his throne, one slow step at a time, until he stood just meters from them. His presence was heavy, like the gravity of a dense star. He looked between them, his expression shifting slowly from anger to calculation to something unreadable. "You say you want nothing," the Emperor murmured. "Yet my daughter looks at you with trust. Real trust. Something she has never given to anyone." He took a slow breath. "This complicates things." Leora's heart thumped. She did not know what he meant. The Emperor turned sharply. "General Varak!" A tall, armored figure stepped forward. "Yes, Your Majesty?" The Emperor's voice echoed. "You will take a fleet to the border. You will stop the Karen Dominion. But first..." He looked at Leora. "Princess Leora will join you." The hall erupted in whispers. Even the general looked shocked. Leora's eyes widened. "Me?" The Emperor nodded. "If you claim strength, then prove it. If you claim you are no longer afraid, then stand with the soldiers who defend this empire." Orion stepped forward quickly. "She is not a soldier." The Emperor raised his hand. "She will have protection. She will have a role suited to her skills." He stared directly at Orion. "And you, human mechanic? You will go with her." Everyone froze. Orion blinked. "What?" The Emperor turned fully toward him. "If you claim to care for her, then you will protect her. If you claim she is strong, then stand beside her when she shows it." Leora's heart raced. She grabbed Orion's hand without thinking. The Emperor noticed, but he did not stop her. He said quietly, "If either of you fail, then this matter will end here. Forever." Leora squeezed Orion's hand. "We will not fail." Orion nodded. "Never." The Emperor studied them for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he turned away. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "They leave at dawn." That night, Orion and Leora stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. The sky was filled with floating lights, and distant ships left shimmering trails as they moved through the air. Leora leaned on the railing, calming herself. "Father never trusted me with anything important," she whispered. "But now, he wants me to go with a fleet. Why?" Orion shrugged. "Maybe he finally sees what I see in you." She blushed. "And what do you see?" Orion looked at her gently. "A woman stronger than she knows." Leora's voice softened. "I used to think nobody would ever want me. I thought I would always be alone." "You're not alone now," he said. She turned to him, her eyes shining. "Orion, when this mission ends, when the Empire is safe," she took a deep breath, "will you stay with me, no matter what Father says?" Orion smiled, soft, real, warm. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I chose you." Leora felt tears touch her eyes, happy ones, the kind she never believed she would feel. She stepped closer and rested her forehead against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her gently. For the first time, she felt her future open like a sky full of stars. Whatever awaited them beyond the border, war, danger, politics, or peace, they would face it together. A princess once mocked, a mechanic once underestimated, now united by choice, not by force. And the Empire would soon learn what humans and Vargans could become when they fought side by side.